Thank you very much, and good morning, eminent dignitaries on the dais, Mr. G.R. Chintala, the chairman, NABARD, Dr. Professor Makan Das, the director, IRMA, Professor Sambhu Prasad, my fellow panelists for the session, and other dignitaries, as well as the members in the auditorium and otherwise connected online. It's a it's a great privilege to be invited to speak on this occasion in the event of a person as tall as Mr. Verghese Kurien. If we think of the farmer producer organization or producer collectives, there can be no taller leader than Mr. Verghese Kurien. He set up lakhs and lakhs of cooperatives, which are in fact the producer collectives. It's just that in the current round of producer enterprises and producer organization, the form that we are choosing is slightly different. The NABARD data bears that out, that more than three-fourths of the organizations are now registered as companies rather than cooperatives. But I guess it's only a matter of form, but as far as the purpose remains, the purpose is of serving the farmers and the agriculture. So tribute to him and tribute to IRMA, who had chosen to remember Dr. Verghese Kurien by organizing workshops and seminars on themes that he held here, and that he would probably from there would also like us to deliberate and think about. So agriculture and allied sector is one of the biggest sources of livelihood in India and contributes around 18% of the India's gross value added for the year 1920. Although multiple initiatives has been taken for making agriculture more profitable and a viable livelihood option, the sector faces several challenges in the entire value chain, from the pre-production level till the time it reaches the consumer's hand. For instance, if you look at the smallholders agriculture point of view in terms of market linkage, a farmer in India is able to realize only about 8% of the value of what when it reaches the hand of the consumer, as against 30% in the developed markets. As of 2020, the percentage of fruits and vegetables that was processed in India stood at 3 to 5%, comparing poorly with several other countries. Even in the case of milk and poultry, India processes only around 35% and 6% of its produce respectively. The idea is that the farmer is not able to realize the value of the produce that he makes, and if we have to succeed in doubling the farmer's income, if we have to make farming as a viable livelihood, we have to make sure that the farmer proportion and stake in the entire value chain is raised as much as possible. Collectivization of small and marginal farmers can help reduce cost of the production, increase per unit productivity, facilitate better market linkage so as to enhance net incomes, create more job opportunities for the villagers themselves. There are data to substantiate this point. NABARD's own data exists, which are there in its own publication. I got hold of a data which was done from a study by the PwC, and it says that the sale through farmer producer companies increase the price realization by 22%. Incidence of cost of marketing went down by 31%. So these kind of illustrate the possibilities that exist. India has a strong history of cooperative movement from pre-independence era. In 1945, just before the independence, the Saraiya Committee recommended for coverage of 50% of all villages and 30% of the rural population within the ambit of cooperative in the next 10 years. And since then, there were several initiatives and committees and 5-year plans which talked of cooperative playing a primary role in organizing rural economic life. But now we realize that the cooperatives didn't succeed as much as they should, and there are several reasons we can talk of them, but given the shortage of time, I wouldn't like to dwell on them. But the idea of the cooperation also went out of the way. So it's good that now we have a Ministry of Cooperation, and which will probably emphasize more on cooperatives. But there are camps within the government which say that the Ministry of Cooperation should also not confine itself to the form of cooperatives, but also other forms of cooperation, which includes the farmer-producer organization organized in form of trust or companies or whatever that be. The ultimate aim of all our interventions in the livelihood space, specifically for agriculture and farm-centric livelihood, is to increase the price realization. I see a huge opportunity in collectivizing producers so as to get larger benefit of the value chain and maximizing their profit. Formation of producer groups and linking them to farmer-producer organization is one of the critical pathways to achieve the larger goal. FPOs by nature have more flexibility in terms of its operation, professional management, decision making, and governance. By nature, it's market-centric and focuses on viability. Hence, as an institution, it has an immense potential to bring prosperity for its members. Let us reflect for a moment the structure of the NRLM and the women collectives that it promotes and encourages. So at the lowest level, you have the self-help groups. At level of village, you have the village organization. And at the for about 25 to 30 odd villages, you have a cluster level federation. So if you see the form that farmer-producer organization generally follows, it's almost the similar. So you have at the village level of group of the producer is known as the producers group. You have about 35 to 50 such producers gathered together, and when they aggregate, you become the farmer-producer organization or producer organization or producer company or whatever name you give. So in fact, organizationally, the NRLM program is in a position to provide a much smoother transition to the production of the farmer-producer organization compared to other forms. So if you see the scheme of the Ministry of Agriculture, which provides for about assistance of about 25 lakhs for formation of the farmer-producer organization, and the activities that are included as part of the scheme is the survey of the farmers and producers, and thereafter their mobilization and registration and all of that. So in the NRLM program, these activities as part of the set of activities that are being done already in the NRLM, it's a very smooth and easy glide to the farmer-producer organization. In the ministry, from the Ministry of Agriculture, we have been given a target of about 200 FPOs out of the 10,000 FPOs being formed. We have a group known as Foundation for Development of Rural Value Chain, which is a Section 8 company and is aimed at encouraging rural value chain aggregating activities. As such, under the rubric of the NRLM, we have about 112,000 farmer producer groups. We have about 181 producer enterprises, in which about 3.7 lakh SHG members are involved. They do a business turnover of about 700 crores. We have under the NRETP formed 13 large-scale value chain development projects covering about 2.5 lakh women across 27 districts in 6 states, in which investment of 262 crores have been made. And there are specialized agencies which have also come as part of the women collectives. And they have also set up milk producer companies, and you will be quite happy to know that one of such milk producers company known as Balini Milk Producer Company, headquartered at Jhansi, interacted with the Prime Minister on 12th of August, and within a period of about 2.5 years, they have been able to collect about 85,000 liters of milk from about 25,000 producers. Now, let us dwell on some of the issues which we feel as important. One of the struggles that we are having in the promotion of the large-scale producer collectives is the issue of the working capital. I have been encouraging the department to give funds in form of equity, but my colleagues come and tell me back, if you don't provide funds to them as part of the working capital, it is very difficult for them to mobilize funds from the market as working capital. I looked at the policies of several banks as a way of preparation for the lecture. The usual eligibility condition is 6 months operation, one balance sheet for most of the banks. Now, if you are starting out, how do you have one balance sheet and 6 months operation if you don't have access to working capital? There are some banks, for example, Bank of this is Canara Bank, I guess, who are extending working capital credit, and there are some NBFCs also. But we'll have to realize that they have no collateral, so to say, available when they are commencing their operation. How do we make sure that for lack of collaterals, for lack of business history, they are able to get working capital is an issue which we think needs to be raised. The collateral free credit available under the scheme of the ministry is of about 2 crores. We think for a decent organization which is not focusing on only about 500 members, in our opinion, this number is too small, and which we think for any decent size farmer producer company, it should have about 2,000 to 3,000 members in order to be able to make a viable business proposition. So you don't have enough collateral-free credit available. The priority sector limits is only about 2 crores for such FPO, which I think is too small. Raise it to about 5 crores. Credit guarantee also raise it to 5 crores. Recognize this as MSME. FPOs are currently not recognized as MSME. If you recognize them as MSME, it opens door to multiple other interventions and supports which are there as MSME. I guess interest subvention is also one area which we would suggest be taken up for the working capital as well. I've been pushing NABARD, and Chairman Chintala Sahab attest to the kind of persuasion that the board and in particular me have been pushing them to kind of organize easy working capital on easy terms for them, and then innovative credit products and are also important. I must at this point in time recognize the signal contribution of NABARD for encouraging banks to act as a financial service providers to not only the FPOs but also to entire members of the FPOs by way of multiple channels, for example, KCC or insurance products or other such interventions. The other point which I would like to mention is would focus on the value chain engagement. At this point in time, if we focus our attention on the NABARD FPOs, you would realize that only about 20% are registered with ENAM. I'm focusing because this is a large set of FPOs, about 5,000 in number, and therefore we have some data with which we can make some inferences with confidence. So only about 20% are registered with ENAM, about 5% are connected to NCDEX, and only 1/3 of them are active on NCDEX. So if they are to make profit, if they are to export, if they are to be taken as serious players on the in the value chain, their engagement with these needs to increase. At this moment, our involvement and engagement is too little to make any difference. So I suggest that we make efforts in this regard. Availability of assaying facilities and warehouse, registered warehouse and warehouse receipt financing is one area which we need to pursue very critically. And then we also need to work out a grid of farm gate processing infrastructure in order to help these farmer producer organizations move up the value chain. The third area which I would like to take up is the professionalization of the management. The issue of the good quality managers is extremely critical. I mean, think of the situation where would the Kheda producer milk cooperative federation would have been if there were no Kurien. So it is the quality of the managers which makes a lot of difference, and wherever you have been able to engage excellent quality managers, the FPOs themselves have benefited. So there is a critical role of managerial cadre. Why did the primary agriculture cooperative societies fail? They failed because the managers that were deployed were had too little knowledge of the sector. They were poorly paid and had little managerial capability, apart from other factors. So I guess we need to pay attention to that. From our side, we have two interventions, which one is called agripreneurs, in which we tell them about the sector, we tell them about the entrepreneurial aspects of the business, and so it helps them prepare. But there are areas in which we are currently not covering, for example, the management of compliances, legal, tax matters, etc. So those are areas which need to be added. Similarly, Udyam Sakhis are another set of interventions which are important. But I think this is one area which needs to be taken up by institutions like IRMA, organizations like NABARD on a long-term basis, and we need to focus on that. Mentoring is another area which is extremely important. You have managers, but if they do not have mentors to guide them on a regular and a routine basis, despite their preparation, they will run up with unexpected problems and they would not be able to succeed if the experience and wise counsel of senior people in this sector is not available. So I would invite from this fora the support and mentoring on a long-term basis from these organizations. Sensitization and engagement of board of directors is important. Everybody recognizes, so need not emphasize the point. Orientation of members and enforcement of accountabilities are also important, and also important is to take up businesses and set up businesses so that at least about 3/4 of the members are engaged. The next issue which I would like to focus on is the issue of IT system. I think one of the critical basis of the functioning of the milk societies is that they have set up an excellent IT system which is able to take into account the milk provided by them, the amount earned by them, the composition of the milk, and a whole variety of data. I think such a system should be available for all such APOs. From our part, I must mention to you that we have developed IT system which should be in a position to provide excellent value, excellent glimpse into the operation of the APOs on a daily basis. And so it's a hands-on tool for operation and management of the FPOs and should be helpful. And then the last theme that I would like to mention in my address is the developing ecosystem of the FPOs. So the umbrella organization of the FPOs is extremely important so that they take into account the concerns of the FPOs that need to be brought to different stakeholders, be they banks, be they government, tax authorities, and so on and so forth. State policies regarding the FPOs is also important. Several of the states have developed their policies, but many others, and particularly in the larger states, have not been able to frame policies. So let's help them frame their policies. Let us also emphasize on those state governments that they should see the FPOs as the interface between the farmers and the government agencies for channelizing different benefits or reaching out to them. And the last issue is in the ecosystem is the issue of contract farming, which I think is an important issue which need to be handled if we are to make a serious dent in the value chain. Although there are issues which I would like to have talked, but given the paucity of time and given other fellow panelists with diverse knowledge and experience that they bring, I would like to rest my case here and thank the IRMA for providing me the opportunity for addressing this gathering. Thank you very much.